Daily Trends, or your trending news channel. Sabri and Sema Bekayensa, Yemumra and Semuno Emo.
Chairman, Wuntu Media Shanti Regional Chairman of the new Patriotic Party regarding a Tano Nimre Forest, a case, for update. I drop it at the free hall at the Abba for you to know, Chairman, to me, or different cases for. Gusua or Kahwasem, and as a Gusua court, no, Kahwasem, one of them a Tano Nimre Forest case, which is being handled by a lawyer and the Apia Kubi. Now, court no option for a quasitina. Na court no a quasitina no a proceedings in a course in a court no Gusua in a Hishemu. Eddie Ahese say ne besia kosi kwabia dia bono no ati say na no ankasa no ni evidence to say prosecution and so the to say court no pass it na no chairman to be present if you show a lawyer for lawyer ma a lawyer and the appear could be a dear said when to me uncle pm e wo ho na no na a court no yes say ne lawyer antimi amade aye lawyer and the appear could be ono any the lead counsel edema the defense on the lead counsel edema the defense say court no say ne lead counsel antimi amade anachire say asem no I was say wotimi etu de sheda na wotimi atoa so na ni nyina no say the reason in tia a lawyer and the appear could be antimi ankopi mu no ni nyina no say according to report no enya de say ne ho efa no ho edodo ne kakra no nti ene nam so a wantimi ankopi mu wo court enti court no tina ase na ne the defense or request say court no agenda case because of the sudden illness of the lead counsel. The lead counsel lawyers ni na ntimi anko say the lead counsel and as a lawyer panyin na odi asem nanim de ma chairman ntumi no ana ntimi anko pm enti ne court the defense omo say omo lead counsel ho fa ne de ne omo sre court no say be yanka court no entun sheda na ne da court ne be she be duru on na ne bia lead counsel no bia hoping say bia be du ho na ne no ho atimi ato na ne omatimi ato asem ne into court no say sisia no asem no watu ade asheda. So the next proceeding ebe koso no court no ebetena se no that would be on July 21st. That would be the day court no ebetena se. And for you to know, chairman to me a case on 20th of July. Chairman to me ankasa no case I don't know ebe koso on the 20th of July. And I share ni mu say ebeduru no that will be the judgment for ebe koso that is the case lawyer Samuel Atachia and or handle. We are looking forward to how that one goes. That one is a different case from we know that one a different case from when we know being handled by a lawyer and the appear could be and the other one handled by a lawyer Samuel Atachia. So yes, I dare say university this year on the 20th of July, Chairman and then 21st and obviously so we see how things will go. We go for video of how things went our court. Now I think so other stories on in no ya jebre etimi ade no so no ade ato aso.
Yesterday or 2 days ago, the president decided to go on a helicopter trip around the flooded areas to assess the damage. This helicopter trip is not likely to produce a scientific outcome for the problems that the people of this country are confronted with. But I would have thought that even that would have been better displayed if he was walking on the ground, touching people, getting into affected homes, lifting babies and so on. The empathy would have been better expressed.
ni go fu wa ke kana jump actually president John Dramani Mahama o se hwe na wo ma pani ni mu a wo fi se ye ti mai mu ase no ye nkola na ase wo bi se insu ato flag yi wa ka ase na ka wo na wo chia wo visit victims no e go sign e ba ni sign se mo ye okay mo ye save there and no be show ka and no you could have show a better sympathy and empathy sa pa go for the back say enya president a wo twen ye ho twen o man no now the who we go a helicopter trip. Warrior just say, own person be at a chim on now with you. But the same, at least it shows some level of concern. We say, okay, at least why baby. And then again, or say our question be sir. Not in Yanon say I'm a family brown idiot, also for watching photo conversation. Nebusia, I will never say, becoming mass cry. We see my it's a camera with a the prime minister. Message what I'm your first time. I will subscribe and like and share. So they are panding poop, better form or training news anymore political.
One of the things that I saw was a video in which a guy who apparently slept in his kiosk. It's in the kiosk, and the kiosk is being carried away by the flood. And he's in the kiosk and he's shouting for help. And who can help? We can go into this, this water which is moving at remarkable speed and take this guy out of the kiosk. That's horrible. That's terrifying. That's one. And I've seen a family, who, when the rain started, decided not to get out of their rooms. They thought that they were protected if they stayed indoors. And so that was also some of the official advice that we had. And the next door house, simply crumbles and it lets in water. And water gets into their house and it's at the window level. And there's no way of coming out, you understand? There are no boats to evacuate them and so on. Extremely harrowing experience. I've seen passengers on a bus, and when they finish getting critical, they all manage to get to the roof of the bus. But the water is building and it's getting to them. And there's no help coming from anywhere, And so many such scenes, complete families stranded and so on. Now, what is the cause of this? And the cause is multiple. There are multiple causes for this. You see, the very land tenure system is a problem. Who decides which house should be sold for residential accommodation, which house should not be sold, and so on? That's a major problem in this crisis. If you leave land acquisition in the hands of persons and authorities who have no knowledge of planning, who have no knowledge of engineering and so on, all they want is to make some money. You understand? Right. So they sell every and any land. So the land tenure system itself comes into question when we begin to look at the consequences of this flooding and so on. Then, of course, there is the question of land administration and planning and engineering and so on. And there are many cases of people who built in waterways. Some actually authorized to build huge mansions in waterways, and there are many, many examples and so on. That is part of the problem. And indeed, the other part of the problem are stories of people who actually fill in, lakes and so on, which are meant to take water in situations like this, fill lakes with concrete and build structures on them and so on. There's a question of law enforcement, and so on. And then some people have raised the question of discipline. People pouring rubbish into gutters and so on. My problem with that kind of talk is simply that they are not talking on the basis of empirical evidence.
Right.
Seeing 5-10 people pouring rubbish into gutters, and that becomes the reason why we are where we are. How much rubbish is dumped into gutters? How much? You understand? How does that affect, flooding and so on? But I don't see any empirical study. All I see are anecdotes and so on, which simply in situations like this are not very helpful, for us. Truth of the matter is that hundreds of thousands of people have been affected by this flooding. Hundreds of thousands of people. And I know that this is not the first time. I recall in the late 1970s, there was a similar flooding. And the politicians at that time, revolutionary politicians at that time, went to visit, the affected people in canoes, and so on, wearing Wellington boots and diving suits and so on. It didn't solve the problem. I remember the flooding that led to the huge fire outbreak around Kwame Nkrumah Circle and the consequences and so on. Huge consequences, for all of us. The authorities were not able to resolve the problem then. Of course, we know about flooding in many parts of the country. In the lower, Akosombo area, only a couple of years ago, we saw massive flooding, which led to very, very terrible consequences for all of us. We've seen flooding in the Tonal area directly as a result of the spillage of water from a dam in Burkina Faso and so on. So flooding has been with us for a very, very long time. Now this morning, we have read a story which says that the World Bank is not happy about the implementation of a measure for which we secured, funding. And the rate of implementation is described almost as lackluster, very, very low level of implementation. So this is a problem which has been with us. If we trace the performance of the various governments we've had over the last 30 years or more, all of the performance has been most abysmal. The Odo River, the Odo is supposed to take in a lot of the water which gets spilled and which causes all of these troubles and fires and so on. There have been plans for distilling the Odo and making it a waterway, for urban transportation and so on. These plans have existed for more than 50 years. They've never been implemented. So part of the reason why we have this is the lack of commitment, by various governments to resolve the problem, and we have the problem now. Now, yesterday we were told that the president has directed that 350 million cedis should be released for emergency relief from the contingency fund. Now, this one I was trying to do the mathematics, and dependent on the numbers that you use. In fact, if you're most generous, per capita, people will be receiving 3,000 cedis.
Yeah.
That doesn't solve any problem. And you have people whose whole lives have been destroyed. Nothing is left. Apart from their ability to breathe and eat, there's nothing left. Their dwellings have been destroyed, their furniture is gone, schools have been washed away and so on. So if you come to think of 3,000 cedis per capita, that's being very generous. It doesn't resolve any problem. On the other hand, government is constrained because resources available to government are not unlimited. And if all we can do is to give 3,000 cedis, per capita, I don't think that the problem is resolved yet. There are a few things that I've observed which are not really substantial, but the cosmetic value is also very important. Yesterday or 2 days ago, the president decided to go on a helicopter trip around the flooded areas to assess the damage. Now, I know the president to be a historian and a journalist. His trip is not likely to produce a scientific outcome. This helicopter trip is not likely to produce a scientific outcome for the problems that the people of this country are confronted with. It shows some empathy with the people who are affected and so on, but I would have thought that even that would have been better displayed if it was walking on the ground, touching people, getting into affected homes, lifting babies and so on. The empathy would have been better expressed than flying around the flooded city in a helicopter. But that is what perhaps his advisors put before him, and he did it. I don't think that the aesthetics are good enough. In a situation where you have this massive flooding and your leaders are in helicopters flying over you, the aesthetics are not very good. But if that has been done, at least it shows some level of concern, even though the aesthetics do not appear to be excellent. You understand? Now, where we are, I think it's time for us to go back to the drawing board.
Or perhaps, he would have done both. Get an aerial view, which is a better eye view of the situation. It's you would appreciate the situation much more if you are in the air, and then come down and then interact with the people.
But I have no objection to that. Yeah. I have no objection to that. But the aesthetics,
I understand.
They didn't look very good.
The optics.
Yeah, the aesthetics didn't look very good. But I agree with you. Both could have been done.
Yes.
But it's now time for us to come back, to take a few steps back and to review the entire national life, not aspects of it, entire national life. Review the prevailing land tenure system, review engineering with regards to urban settlement development.